Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. We're here to talk about Scotland and the trip on October 1st this year with the Waverly Chamber of Commerce. The trip, when you break it down and kind of look at it from big picture, so to speak, you have 2 nights in Edinburgh, 2 nights in Inverness, and then 2 nights in Glasgow. There is an extension for an additional 3 nights to Belfast, which we'll talk about as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Of course, the trip itself, it includes airfare from Des Moines, and we're going to be, and that includes our airport departure taxes as well as fuel surcharges and the transfers and everything else. But when we leave to Des Moines, I wish it was always this easy, but we're going to land in Edinburgh just like that, right? And but when you land in Edinburgh, you're going to be met by our tour guide there outside of the baggage claim area with a sign that says Edelman Discoveries, Waverly Chamber of Commerce, and there'll be a bus outside waiting for you to pick you up and of course take you to your hotel. But this is just a kind of a quick overview of where we're going, what we're doing, and the numbers obviously represent the number of nights that we're staying. All of the touring is going to be done by Deluxe Motor Coach, which means there's going to be a large passenger bus, basically motor coach. It's going to take us from Edinburgh to Inverness and down to Glasgow as well, and that's going to also provide our transportation to and from the airports to your hotels. Mentioned your Chamber Discovery and Edelman Discovery guide there. No guarantee that they're going to be in that yellow hat, but there will be a guide there that's easily. Usually they have a little flag or they wear something, a big red coat anyway, that makes them kind of stand out in the crowd, so they're easy to follow. One thing I should mention is not shown in this picture though. Everyone is going to be given a headset to wear, and your guide's going to have a small little microphone, and that way you'll be able to hear your guide from 100 feet away, just like you were standing right next to them. So that's going to add to and that's going to be with you every day on all of your tours as well. Our tour of Edinburgh, when we on arrival, we're gonna on arrival go into and spend the day touring Edinburgh. And really the castle of course, or the is of course the highlight. But we're going to take you kind of around the city. We'll go to well the Royal Mile there that kind of takes you up to the castle. And Edinburgh Castle, it's one of those places that really does, kind of meet the hype. It's offers incredible views off the castle, but you can just imagine what it would have been like in the Middle Ages when you come up to this thing. I mean, how intimidating, it would have been. Quick aerial view of it as well. I mean, it's just massive. I don't think the merry-go-round was there during William Wallace's time, but who knows? I'm not sure. Um, anyway, the tour itself is going to take us all around the city of Edinburgh, and then we're going to have 2 nights at the Apex Waterloo Hotel. Now, it could be this hotel, more than likely will be. However, it could be a hotel very similar. The one thing I can guarantee is that it's going to be a first class, 4-star to 5-star hotel. Um, Very nice. And I stayed at this hotel. It's a wonderful property right in the city center there. Um, so so then after breakfast this next day, we're going to head out, and this is when we're going to basically kind of visit the countryside surrounding Edinburgh. We're going to go to the Rosslyn Chapel, which was actually featured in one of the Da Vinci Code novels. And anyway, Rosslyn Chapel, it's much smaller than the pictures lead you to believe. It's really quite small and really quaint. It's a really neat little church. I mean, with the flying buttresses, I just love the architecture. But you have beautiful stained glass and you know amazing ceilings. Anyway, And basically from the from Edinburgh, we're gonna head out and you're gonna see these bridges. When I was there last, this bridge was almost done. We were still driving on this one. So probably when you guys go, we'll be driving on this one. Um anyway, this is they kind of show you from old to new, right? You can see the bridges and the kind of the progression. It's kind of neat. Um, but basically, once we go over that bridge, we come into the abbey here, and this is done from an abbey. You can see Bruce, the king there, King Bruce. Um, and this was what one of his abbeys. It's and coincidentally, I shouldn't say that, but Andrew Carnegie was also actually born in this town, and his childhood home is down the road from this, maybe a quarter mile, and there's little tours of that too. So it's kind of neat. Um, anyway, we'll spend not a lot of time here, just probably gosh, if I remember right, maybe a couple hours or so, 2 to 2.5 hours, something like that. But really, the highlight, at least for me, this day was when we go to Stirling. Stirling Castle is kind of like Edinburgh Castle, although not quite as, certainly not as large and not as grand, but very impressive still. You can see kind of where the bridge where William Wallace fought the English, and they'll kind of show you the battlefields around Stirling where, and if you watch Braveheart, although it's not really historically accurate, it certainly it kind of gives you a lay of the land, so to speak. There's a large statue of William Wallace here at Stirling Castle as you kind of go through. What was so interesting to me was there's so many different walls within Stirling, the castle, to, if one set of walls were breached, the defenders would fall back to another kind of stronghold and keep defending. It was really kind of interesting. Anyway, that evening, after basically we're going to spend the rest of the day at Stirling, come back, get into Edinburgh late that afternoon, early evening sometime. But then essentially there's an optional show that we can. This is where it's it's it is a bit touristy, but it's still really nice, and it's a lot of fun. We get to eat haggis, um, and there's bagpipes playing. There's a lot of traditional Scottish food like haggis that you'll try, but it's a whole production, and it's actually a lot of fun. But this would essentially be our last night in Edinburgh. If you're looking for a quiet night that you want to go, maybe sip scotch and have a steak, or you know what I mean, this is not your place. Okay, this is a lot of fun, but it's not this is our last night in Edinburgh. So if you want to do something, want to go to a nice pub or something like that, then you might want to skip out on this, is all. um but it's still wonderful. When we leave, we're leaving. We're heading to the Highlands, and we're not going to just drive straight to Inverness. We're going to go and we're going to spend the afternoon in St. Andrews, and we'll have lunch at St. Andrews. The tour of St. Andrews takes you all over, really, the town, and it is really a small town. And then, of course, the famous golf course as well. There'll be time to take pictures on the golf course, or if you want to stand on a little bridge, there will be time for that. We will have lunch. Lunch will be included in St. Andrews as well, for everyone. And kind of the tour takes you, of course, through you see the old cathedral, and you'll see the old castle there as well, and then the new one, then part of the university, which is spread all throughout the town of St. Andrews. So there's all different buildings all over the town of St. Andrews for the university there. It's kind of funny. When I was there, one of the cafes still had a big sign out that said, "Where Will met Kate." And it was a big heart, a big red heart. It was like, anyway, that was the cafe, I guess, where they used to go and have coffee. So, of course, naturally, I went there and got a latte. But anyway, uh, spend a little bit of time on St. Andrews. Like I said, we can go out to the, to the bridge there, take your picture. There is time to there's not time certainly to play around a golf, but there's a little putting green off to the side that you can, if you want, rent some clubs, rent some putters and go off and, play a little putt putt on a kind of some separate greens there. But there would be time and that is available for you. On our way, and so essentially we're going to be there that afternoon, and then we're going to get back on the motor coach and head north, and we're going to drive to Inverness. Inverness is really the kind of the that last, I'll call it last large city before we get into the what they call it consider to be the Highlands of Scotland. And your hotel, the Glenmore Hotel, I stayed here. This is it's a wonderful hotel right on the river. And just it's on the same side of the river as the Inverness Castle as well. Um, and and you it's God, maybe a quarter mile, maybe something like that. So very, very manageable, if you want to walk and spend a free day in Inverness. You can walk right from the hotel to the castle to the downtown center and spend and have basically a free day in Inverness to kind of do your own thing if you want. Um, this is Inverness Castle, like I was talking about. Uh, the cathedral there as well. But we do have an basically a full day. If you don't want to have a free day, if we want to have additional touring, we can go over to the Dunrobin Castle and the Falconry Show, and they actually show you how the men back, 500 years ago, they would actually hunt with falcons and they would hunt rabbit and small prey and stuff. It's wild what these birds can do and how they're trained. And anyway, and we're going to spend basically the day. It's up north into the Highlands. I believe it's on the Isle of Skye, and then you have the Dunrobin Castle there. Um, the tour is going to be through that, and of course the falconry show as well, which is on the castle grounds. So that's really gonna we're leaving Inverness, and we've had our day, basically our 2 nights there, and that next morning after breakfast we're gonna jump on the motor coach and we're gonna head south. And literally about 20 minutes into the drive is Loch Ness, and that's the lake. And we're basically going to we're going to stop in Loch Ness and tour the castle called the Umquat Castle. It's the ruins. The English destroyed it. But the ruins of this castle, as well as, we're no guarantees, but hopefully we see Nessie. I don't know. If you do, make sure you have your cameras ready because I heard he's a bit elusive. Um, but we've got the Umquat Castle here, right on the banks of Loch Ness, and this was one of the large Scottish castles back in the day, and when the English were trying to crush its bid for independence, basically they just went through wrecking things, and the Umquat Castle got wrecked. Uh, anyway, as we head south, though, we're going to keep heading south, and this is for the Harry Potter fans out there. This is a good place. We stop. There's a little shop to get some ice cream or little sandwiches. If you're hungry. But this is a stop to really kind of both bathroom break and grab a bite to eat, small snack, but also for Harry Potter. Like this is the Harry Potter bridge. You can walk. It's maybe I don't know, 20 steps or so up to this little ridge, and then you can look out from where the bus parks, and you'll see the Harry Potter bridge go by. It was when we were there. I mean, when we were there, unfortunately, we didn't see the train on it. But sometimes, if the timing lines up, you'll see the Harry Potter train. Even it's pretty cool. Um, but this is again on our way down to Glasgow. Arriving into Glasgow, we'll check into in our hotel, the Apex City Hotel here. And again, this is I think Google's is rating this like a 4.3 star. It's very nice, centrally located, beautiful hotel. But the tour of Glasgow is really going to take us through the whole city. We're going to go into the kind of the I don't know, the city center of it where Buchanan Street is, as well as we're going to come outside the city a bit where the Kellen Grove Museum is. And of course, the tour includes all your entrance tickets. So they'll pass out your entrance tickets. We'll walk into the museum. This is kind of interesting. It's got a little bit of everything. It's got like World War II history. It's got like natural history. Um, I mean, it's amazing and everything in between. It's really neat. But then kind of coming back into what I would consider to be kind of the city center of Glasgow. We'll go to the cathedral here. This is probably out of all the places, at least in my opinion, this had some of the most impressive stained glass that, out of all the churches we visited on this trip, in Scotland here. Anyway, and then but there is of course free time. This is like their mall, but it's not a mall. It's in beautiful architecture and it's all along this large street that goes on for probably a couple miles, and it's just a pedestrian thoroughfare basically. And this is called Buchanan Street. So tons of restaurants, shops, department stores, boutiques, all of it you can find here. Um, it's kind of neat. It's really gonna for Scotland again. We'll be in. We're gonna have those 8 days or 6 nights in Scotland. On that eighth day, you'll wake up and you'll either fly home from Glasgow, or there is a chance, like I said, to go, excuse me, and extend on to Belfast. And Belfast itself, it's we're gonna get there via ferry. And ferry may be a little misleading. I don't want you to think it's a big boat with like some paddle wheel or something. It's a is basically a small cruise ship, and it's massive. And we're gonna all load onto that thing, and and basically they're gonna head south. The kind of the cool thing about Belfast is, well, this is where the Titanic was built, and so you're gonna come in to the Belfast harbor, obviously to come off the ferry. So you really kind of get to see Belfast from that vantage point. But when you come into the city, we're going to take you all over, including the Titanic Museum. And the entrance, all the entrance fees associated with are included in the tour. But we're going to go to the Titanic Museum and also leave Belfast. And we're going to spend a day up in Northern Ireland. We're going to visit the Giant's Causeway, which is, I mean, it's world famous, but it's amazing to see these all of these stones literally kind of come out. Looks like a road that goes into the ocean. It's pretty cool. Um, but Stormont, uh this is their Capitol building basically on top of a hill. Uh it overlooks Belfast. And but for me, I always remember Belfast and the Protestants and the Catholics kind of at war. And and you're going to learn all about that period of time called the Troubles. And they're going to bring you through the different Protestant and Catholic neighborhoods. And then in part of it's outside of well, it's outside of a Protestant neighborhood is this wall of signatures is and basically this is a peace wall. Um, but you can see, look at how high these barricades were at one point. These are to keep people out. You'll drive around and they still neighborhoods will completely seal themselves off. And and they don't do it anymore, but it's the walls and everything are still there. And so you can just imagine. Anyway, we're gonna have the extension to Belfast would be an additional 3 nights, and then we would fly home from Belfast. You'd fly back to Des Moines from Belfast, and which would essentially conclude the trip. Um, if there's any questions, I would be happy you know, to answer any questions that you may have. The best way to reach me would be by my email, and that's going to be C and then BROUGH at edelmandiscoveries.com. And again, that's CBROUGH at edelmandiscoveries.com. Thank you very much for joining us, and I hope to see you on the trip.
Chris, just a couple of questions that I know popped up the last time
Yeah,
that we had an information meeting with you. People might want to know if there's any kind of vaccination procedures or policies or anything that with traveling on a trip like this to another country.
there no there's you don't need to be whether you're fully vaccinated and boosted and all that, or not vaccinated at all. It has no bearing. You can travel, and there's no sorts of identification that you need to prove, other than you do need to have a valid passport, and that needs to be valid for 6 months after your return date, and that's very important. So
Okay.
just a passport is all you'll need.
That's really great. Another question too is, what if somebody has a friend that wants to go with them on the trip, but they live in another city? Are they able to connect with you and arrange airfare out of a different city other than Des Moines?
Yes, that's no problem at all. They can reach out to me directly, and then I would put them in contact with our air department, and then they would work directly with our air department on any of those kind of specifics.
Sure. Are there other questions that you usually get from inquiring travelers that maybe we could just address right now on this recording?
Yeah. One thing that pops up is what is the average group size on something like this?
Hmm. Yeah.
And folks can expect to be traveling with anywhere from about 25 to 35. At times it can be slightly larger. But you'll never be traveling with 100 people or something like that. So it'll be kind of a smaller group.
Right. And we're also joined too by Urbandale Chamber Director Tiffany Menke, who's done a lot of these trips with the Chamber Discoveries. Tiffany, what are some things that folks maybe ask of you on your trips that we can address here on this recording?
I think one thing we get quite a bit is the insurance question. So, Chris, do you want to just talk a little bit about the insurance options available for the
Sure.
trip?
Yeah, absolutely. We, there's two options that we have for you. One is would be considered a cancel for any reason policy, and that is literally, it means what it says. You can cancel for any reason, and you can get your money back. Generally, those policies are more expensive. The premiums are more expensive. Then you also have what I would consider more of a traditional policy, that there's going to be a finite reasons of why you can cancel, and those are going to be if you got sick, or a family member got sick, or if there was some catastrophic thing that happened, you be able to cancel and get your money back. Now, those premiums are generally much more, I'll say, user friendly. Uh, but one thing I do want to point out, both of those are going to cover cancellation coverage, and you all can purchase our insurance, or certainly go to your local AAA, or your local insurance provider, and you don't need to buy our insurance in order to insure yourself on the trip. But last thing I should mention about insurance is that, in addition to the cost of the trip, included in that, and kind of added to it, but at no extra cost, is a complimentary insurance policy, and that's going to cover you. Now, if it's not going to cover you for cancellation. So if you were to cancel, this policy doesn't help for that. But what it does help for is if, God forbid, you got hurt, and you got severely hurt, and maybe had to be emergency evacuated back to the States. There's like $150,000 of insurance for that. And it goes from that all the way down to, if you lose your bag, and let's say you lose your luggage, and your bag never shows up for the whole time you're there. Well, there's $1,500 worth of coverage for you to go buy yourself a new wardrobe, and make sure you keep the receipts, but you can buy yourself a new wardrobe, make the claim, and then get that money back. So that's a complimentary policy that's included with the trip. I think you're muted, Tiff.
Sorry. The other thing we've had questions on in the past is the single traveler. If somebody is a single traveler, how do you guys handle that?
Yeah, that's a great question. For single travelers, there is going to be an additional cost for those folks. And how it breaks down is for the I'll call it the base program, just Scotland without Belfast, that would be an additional $600 for the traveler. If they want to add Belfast to that, that would be essentially an additional 300 for that. So if they did both, I guess that would add up to, $900 for a single supplement for Scotland and Belfast.
Yep, you're muted again, Tiffany.
I'm out of practice. I think those are the questions we get quite a bit, along with the other ones you've already addressed.
Great. Well, Chris and Tiffany, thank you both for joining us and providing this recording for our viewers, and hopefully we get some people that reach out to you, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Travis and Tiffany. Thank you for your time. And of course I'm here if anything pops up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.